Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Thursday night. Lovely to have you in for another episode of the Prime Time Show. We have got an interesting clip to talk about from an interview that many of you have seen. Very close to my face tonight. That's a little jarring. But either way, we're happy to have you guys jump on in here and to talk about the Titans as an afterthought. The way that it was presented to Jeffrey Simmons by Rich Eisen on his appearance on that show the other day got me to thinking about the most slept on teams in the NFL. And are the Titans actually an afterthought elsewhere in the NFL? And should they be, based on the amount of work and movement that they have experienced in the last less than 6 months, about 6 months at this point, coming up in July. So we'll go through that together. We'll talk about who the most slept on team in the NFL is heading into this season. Then we'll get to a section of the discussion that we did not get a chance to talk about last night. What do you most want to see out of the Titans' Cabo trip? Because, of course, he is down there with veteran skill position players. And we will wrap things up with a bounce back because that is what we do. Before we get started, need you guys to share the broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch, wherever you are spending your time with us. It is always appreciated when you share the show. You know how to do it on Twitter. Retweet it. If you're hanging out on Facebook Live, you can share now to public. That's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And if you're on YouTube or Twitch, like the video, subscribe to the channel while you're there. Amar says, Rich Eisen is the ultimate bandwagon fan of them all. No, I don't think that's true. I think Rich is pretty out there with his allegiances. He's a diehard Michigan fan, and he's never been shy about that. And I think he's a Los Angeles Rams fan, but I may be mistaken. Either way, he's the face of the NFL Network, and for him to look the face of your team in the face and say, yeah, you guys are kind of an afterthought, pretty interesting discussion that I think could evolve out of that as to whether they deserve to be more than an afterthought or not. So we will do all of these things tonight, but first we have to get the show started. Let's do it. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. Promo code ATOZTN gets you in on all the action in the Zen Sports app. Whether you're betting on Major League Baseball, football, hockey, basketball, all out of season right now, but you can always bet on your favorite major sports in the Zen Sports app with promo code ATOZTN. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer, where you can get $8,000 off your Ford Expedition. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. And TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch, where your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated with the best workout in Middle Tennessee. Go to truemavfitness.com, where, as I mentioned, that first workout is indeed free. So the Titans as an afterthought. How does that strike you to hear? Well, I guess that I can't really do it justice hearing it from me. I've talked you guys through all manner of mental crises and persecution complex and all other kinds of things that it feels like Titans fans deal with on a year in, year out basis. What do I mean by that? Well, the perpetual conversation of, well, nobody cares about us, nobody watches us, so how can they talk intelligently about us? Which is a fair criticism if you're a Titans fan, I think, a lot of times, especially in the last two seasons where the Titans have been irrelevant. And even in really, I would say, one season, in 2023, they were largely irrelevant. In 2022, they were the division leader until very much they weren't and lost 7 straight games en route to getting bounced from the division lead and the postseason by the Jacksonville Jaguars that year. So it's not like the Titans have been in a long stretch of irrelevancy, but there's always been that kind of thought in the back of y'all's head about, well, why do they not think that we're capable of going to New England, beating Tom Brady? And why is everybody picking the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC divisional round in 2019? And this and that and all the other things that Titans fans keep, real or imagined, where it comes to slights, talking about how much disrespect you guys feel on an annual basis with the coverage, the national coverage of your team, because, we've been through this. I love you. I'm here for you every night, but sometimes I understand I'm not good enough for you, and you have to seek your gratification from elsewhere. But you don't get your gratification from elsewhere because nobody else is talking about your team on a regular basis. MB says if the Titans are irrelevant, so are about 25 other teams. Well, relevancy is an interesting question, right? Are the Titans relevant in the landscape of the NFL? I would argue in 2024, heading into 2024, that they're not terribly relevant in the landscape of the NFL. They have an unproven commodity at quarterback. They have a bunch of new pieces that we haven't seen work together yet. They've got a first-time head coach, and they're only on national television once, and it's before the month of October even starts. So that's TV Network's way of saying, all right, fine, we'll do it, but we'll get it out of the way in September. How many teams fit that description like the Tennessee Titans do? I would think that a franchise like the Arizona Cardinals has dealt with this in some form or fashion in the last couple of years. Certainly, they've had worse stretches of football than the Tennessee Titans have. I would say that the Jacksonville Jaguars in any given year typically deal with this, although there is additional scrutiny that comes with drafting the first overall pick at quarterback, and with that first overall pick at quarterback, getting a $55 million contract this year. There are a couple of teams, I think, that could fit this bill. Smaller market, not historically great, or historically long-running franchises. The Tennessee Titans have been around since 1960, but the Titans are only heading into their 26th year of playing football under that name, which is still, a fledgling by most NFL standards. I think that there are a couple of teams when you talk about irrelevant, but in terms of the competitiveness, right? Do I think the Titans are irrelevant where it relates to competitiveness? No, I think all four AFC South teams are going to be pretty frisky. But do I think the Titans are irrelevant in terms of what kind of coverage they deserve on a national landscape? Yes, I indeed do. And there are some teams who are less competitive, or who could be less competitive than the Titans are, but are bigger brands and will receive coverage thusly, as you've been through a million times before. So we don't have to relitigate that particular persecution complex, or at least I wasn't planning to this offseason until I heard this clip from Jeff Simmons' visit with Rich Eisen that we'll play for you here in just a second. But the question that I'm going to ask you is, who is the most slept on team of the 2024 NFL season? I will tell you straight up, mine is not the Titans, and I'll tell you who mine is in just a second, right after you hear from Jeffrey Simmons. But before we even do that, I got to remind you that your Two Rivers Ford Take is presented by the South's most trusted Ford dealer. That's Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet. So you heard me mention earlier that they are offering you $8,000 off your 2024 Ford Explorer when you shop at Two Rivers. They are always providing you excellent savings because their new non-specialty Fords are always sold below MSRP. And plus, they do not have a sales staff that works on commission, meaning there is no pressure on you throughout the course of the car buying process. Go to Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. So, who is the most slept on team of the NFL offseason? Michael Edwards says the Saints used to be the Saints. Saints are, I don't think anybody's sleeping on the Saints necessarily. The quarterback situation is tough. Derek Carr is not somebody I would want to be married to long term. It feels like that's the latest version of the Tannehill conundrum that Titans fans just got out from under. Everyone other than the Chiefs, Bills, Bengals, San Francisco, Detroit, Baltimore, Steelers, and the Packers. The rest are no more relevant than the Titans. Well, certainly that's, MB, that's not true. The Cowboys are infinitely more relevant than the Titans. The Giants as a brand are infinitely more relevant than the Titans. That the Jets are all anybody can talk about. Relevancy, it depends on how you define relevancy, and you can be talking in football terms versus coverage terms, but damn well that that list is not exclusive to those teams that you just named, because there are so many teams who garner so much more attention than does the local professional football team, and that's okay. It's not about attention. It's about winning football games. But it is part of the, I don't want to say part of the problem, but it is a part of the problem that Titans fans experience year in and year out, in their offseason, but never has it been as real or as visceral as Jeff Simmons' visit with Rich Eisen.
Week 1 of the National Football League season will be the first human being on the other side of the line of scrimmage
painted nails
in a game.
Painted nails.
I can't wait to say that to him.
For Caleb Williams.
Most definitely.
So you've got that plan?
Oh, it's gonna be one of them games. Especially, I mean, he probably get smack talk to his his teammates right now. But like, it's gonna be, especially a game like that. My first game, like, of course, I missed the last end of the season.
Right.
It's gonna be the first game of the season. They got us coming to Chicago. All the hype gonna be around them, of course. So it's like, that's going. I think when especially like even primetime games, because everybody I wish I would have played the Miami game, but like everybody count Tennessee out,
right?
Which we all know. And a game like Chicago, and I'm sure they thinking we about to get beat out the like bad. So that also make me even talk more smack and boost me up a little more, make me get in a different mode as well. So I'll be in a different mode that game.
Well, speaking on behalf, if I may, of the national media, of which I am a part, there's no doubt in my mind that entire game leading up to it will be all about the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams, and Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze, and what the Bears have done to get Caleb Williams all set up. And you guys will be absolutely an afterthought. There's no doubt in my mind about it.
Most definitely.
And I would say that to you with no conviction at all.
I get it. When you got a first-round pick like Caleb Williams himself, which is a great player. Watch him a couple games when he was at USC, and he's a hell of a player. But it's a different league, and I'm excited to play him the first game.
Well, because I'm sure you're well aware of what's going on in the rest of the sports world right now, say with Caitlin Clark in the WNBA, right?
Yep,
and how there's a lot of players in that grown woman league
for sure
that has been eager to welcome her to the professional ranks.
Most definitely.
And you kind of are going to be the guy that could lead the forefront to do that to Caleb Williams.
That's like the goal. Like, that's my mindset. Then again, I really don't care who it may be.
Sure.
It could be, Tom Brady, first game of the season. I want to go out there and set the tone, not just for him, but for who we are trying to be as a defense and as a team in Tennessee. So, but like you said, it is one of them games where his real first NFL game, and I just hopefully, we're not out to hurt no one, but at the same time, our goal is to get to him, and it's like you said, welcome him to the NFL.
So that is Jeff Simmons on with Rich Eisen. A to Z Sports Primetime is presented by the great people at TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Get your first workout free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated. That's the TrueMath Fitness way. They always go above and beyond to help you achieve your fitness goals without making you feel like you are under duress, without making you feel like you are out of your comfort zone, without making you feel like you are overexerting, because that is what TrueMath Fitness is. It is for every level of fitness, because all of our fitness goals are different, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to physically tone, whether you're trying to just get healthier, have better sleep, which working out does, just get an endorphin boost, which working out does. TrueMath Fitness is there to help you, whatever your fitness goals may be. Personal training, group fitness classes, and memberships to work out at their open gym facility whenever you please at TrueMathFitness.com. So it's an interesting back and forth, because it's not like Rich Eisen hits him in the face with it really hard, right? But he does tell Jeff Simmons to his face, there is no doubt in my mind, he's saying the national media, of which he is a part of, he's not just the national media, he's the face of the league's network. Rich Eisen is the face of the NFL Network, and the face of the NFL Network is telling Jeff Simmons straight up, yeah, you're going to be an afterthought in week 1. Now, I think Jeff is probably well-versed in the art of being an afterthought. He's been here now for several seasons since being drafted in the first round in 2019. He has seen many, many moments where this team has been discounted, slept on, disrespected, or otherwise, some that have been earned, some that have been unearned. Bork says it's a surprisingly honest exchange. I think it's always interesting, right? Because the players know this, but and we ask them this all the time. But it's different in the same way that you guys get tired of locals talking about your team every day and you want some validation from Rich Eisen or Stephen A. Smith or whoever it might be that's got a bigger platform talking about whenever it is that they talk about your team. And usually when they talk about your team, it's, what a team that they lost to and what's wrong with the other team that lost to the Tennessee Titans, because who on earth could lose to the Tennessee Titans? That's typically the tone that this thing takes. So it made me think about who the most slept on team of the NFL offseason is, and if the Titans do truly deserve a seat at that table as being a team that is slept on but ascending. Now, I do think that there's a good argument to be made, but we can dive into this because I think there's a couple of good candidates that you might pick from. When I looked at the NFL, just the teams by division, I looked at the standings from last year. I looked at the different moves that have been made by all these various organizations, and I had a hard time nailing it down to just one or the most slept on team, because I think there's a couple of different arguments I could make. I think that I could make a compelling argument for a team like the Tennessee Titans. It would be very, very easy to. I pretty much do it on a night-by-night basis, but that is not the team that I believe to be the most slept on. I think the Titans have been appropriately discussed this offseason. I don't think they warrant any more discussion until such time as there's appreciable growth and development from Will Levis, which of course we will not see until at least September the 8th when this team opens up play against the Bears. So I won't make the argument for the Titans. I took a look at the Denver Broncos because the Broncos are a laughingstock. Now, that's not going to be the team that I pick, but the Broncos have been a laughingstock. The quarterback situation there is, I don't want to say it's fascinating. Fascinating would probably give it too much credit. But I am curious about them. And a lot of smart offensive football people that I talk to around the league are very, very confident about the idea of Bo Nix succeeding with Sean Payton. Do I think they're slept on? I don't know. I almost look at them the same way that I did the Bucs last year. That's a pretty bad quarterback competition, even if Bo Nix ends up being worthy of a first-round draft choice, which it was a surprise, I think, to everybody but the Broncos that he was taken in the first round. Looking at the NFC in particular, I found a couple more interesting teams that I think are worth talking about. The Bucs, I don't think, are slept on. The Bucs were slept on last year, and you talked about the quarterback competition that wasn't very appealing between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. Baker Mayfield had a career year in Tampa Bay, got Dave Canales hired, the offensive coordinator there, as the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. The Chicago Bears are not slept on in the NFC because they've got the number one overall pick at quarterback, and I don't think any NFC East team is lacking for coverage or lack of conversation, which brings me to the NFC West. And of the teams in the NFC West, I had a hard time even deciding between the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks as the team that I think is the most slept on. Chingbing steals my answer. He says Seattle, and Seattle is ultimately where I'm going to land. I do think that the Titans are probably being underrated a little bit, but until such time as I know something more definitive about the Tennessee Titans, then I don't think that they warrant any further discussion. I don't think they warrant any further praise. I don't think they warrant necessarily any further negativity or dismissal, but I also don't think that they're underrated. I think that they've been properly talked about. I think their offseason moves have been paid attention to. And right now, the best thing to do is to sit back and wait. MB says, what do you mean by slept on? Are you talking about making the playoffs, winning the division, or contending for a Super Bowl? Let's leave it to making the playoffs, and I do think that's a good clarification by MB to make. I think as a sleeper playoff team is probably the best way to look at it, and I think the Titans, again, would make a very compelling case. I think you could make all four, the argument for all four AFC South teams, truly, if you wanted to. But Seattle is the place that I land. The Seahawks have three of the best wide receivers in football, three of the best three deep wide receivers in football in what they have acquired, not just DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, but Jackson Smith and Jigba, the former first-round pick out of Ohio State, makes that as capable and deadly a 3 deep at wide receiver as any team in football currently has. The quarterback, Geno Smith, has had a career renaissance, and it's sustainable, which is crazy. Geno, a decade into his career, is playing the best football of his career, and you've seen growth and development and, again, consistency that makes you think that they can sustain. The offensive line situation has been rebuilt over the past couple of years, and I think that they have steadily improved. The defense is the thing that ultimately, well, and I don't know this. I would be speculating because I don't cover the Seattle Seahawks every day the way that I do the Tennessee Titans. So I don't have inside information, and I don't know all the ins and outs of the conversation. But what I will say is defensively, the Seahawks struggles, I think, are a big reason why Pete Carroll is no longer the head coach, or why Pete Carroll was gently shifted into another role and why Mike McDonald was hired there, because their offense is good enough to win football games. Their defense has undermined them in the last couple of seasons. I believe Seattle to be the most slept on team in the NFL. I think Seattle is easily a playoff contender, even in a hellscape of a division that has the Los Angeles Rams, who I also think are being slept on to a degree. The San Francisco 49ers, who most recently appeared in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs. And then, of course, what you have in the Rams, the Seahawks, the Niners, and the Cardinals, where they're certainly slept on, but I think the sleeping on the Cardinals is justifiable until such time as we see meaningful growth, again, on a sustainable level from Kyler Murray, which we have yet to see to date. David Lee says you could list all three AFC and 3 NFC teams to reach the Super Bowl, and you would likely be right, barring injuries. You could make a list of 3 AFC and 3 NFC teams to make the Super Bowl, and you would likely be right, barring injuries. I'm not sure if David Lee is talking to me or carrying on a conversation amongst himself, but I'm not sure the context for the comment. Amar says Seattle is in the same position the Titans are. No, of course not. That's ridiculous. Geno Smith is a markedly more proven quarterback than Will Levis is. That's not even close. I wonder how many people would take the Titans wide receiver core over the Seahawks. I bet most wouldn't. Would I? I really like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, and I like Jackson Smith and Jigba. I really like Calvin Ridley, though, and I think Tyler Boyd is an interesting addition to that equation. Diop, we talked a lot about DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's worthy of a contract extension. I would probably, for the upcoming season, I would be inclined to take the Titans wide receivers just because they're working with an offensive-minded head coach who's had a track record of success. But I don't think that I could do it too easily. And I don't know that I would, I don't know, I wouldn't take the Titans wide receivers 9 times out of 10. I would probably have presented, I don't know, actually. I think I'm talking myself off that position the more that I think about it. The idea of the Titans wide receivers over the Seahawks wide receivers. Amar says, yeah, but Geno is elite, average at best. Is not elite, average at best. Well, no, he's not average at best. He's considerably above average. Have you not looked at the Seahawks passing metrics on how deep consistently they are completing passes down the field, how explosive that offense is, how effective Geno Smith has been at pushing the ball down the field? Clearly, you are not watching Geno Smith if you believe Geno Smith to be average in the last couple of seasons. Geno Smith has been average. Geno Smith has been a backup quarterback. A backup quarterback, a replacement level starting quarterback, is average. Geno Smith is not average. Geno Smith is one of 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL. None of them, I believe. I don't believe that you can be a starting quarterback in the NFL and be outright average. I believe the average lies somewhere more in the middle ground around the quarterback position, even though that's not the way that fans discuss that. To say that Geno Smith has been average with the Seahawks is blatantly stupid. It's ignorant. It's ignorant of what he has accomplished, what he has been able to do, and how big of a career renaissance this actually is. So I would tell you that is a not fair assessment. And by the way, I am still waiting for Will Levis to be average, right? I mean, to assume that, or to project that the Titans are in the same situation as the Seahawks would mean that Will Levis has played quarterback at a much higher level than I remember Will Levis playing quarterback at. I would love to see Will Levis take a substantial leap this year for no other reason than entertainment value. But Will Levis has not accomplished anything that Geno Smith hasn't accomplished in the NFL, so I'm confused as to why that comparison would be one you would be interested in making. Now they're in a similar situation as their head coach. Turning over, and they have an AFC North coordinator, a former AFC North coordinator who is running the show there, and Mike McDonald, the former Ravens defensive coordinator. So those are comparisons that are fair. But in terms of roster construction and place that they are in their cycle of things, the Tennessee Titans would love to get to where the Seattle Seahawks have been with Geno Smith at quarterback. So I'm confused by that particular comparison. Anyway, let's talk about so who are the most slept-on team in the NFL? I believe it to be Seattle. I would totally take the argument for the Titans, but I don't think that they are the most slept-on team this season. Titans are in Cabo right now, as many people are enjoying their summer vacation. So too is Will Levis and the veteran skill position players. Now, Treylon Burks is expecting the birth of his child, so I believe he is not there. I've not seen anything of Tony Pollard down there, though I assume that they will be there for a bit of an extended period of time, or have been down there for a period of extended time. So not every guy has to be there for the entirety of the trip. I'm not sure if Tony Pollard was there or not for the duration, but I will work to find that out for you. But DeAndre Hopkins, Tajay Spears, Chika Okonkwo, saw Josh Wiley in the social media posts and things like that, have all been in attendance, Calvin Ridley included. Specific to vets, it sounds like skill position players. I didn't see Jaquan Jackson or Jabari Small running around out there. I think this was specific to the players who have been in the NFL with their quarterback. And I'm curious as to what you most want to see or wanted to see out of the Titans' trip to Cabo. That's the question that we will ask you. You can answer in the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. While you guys discuss that, I'll remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, get up to $100 on your no danger first wager when you bet on Major League Baseball. When you bet on all of your favorite major sports, make sure you use that promo code and get the maximum for your no danger first wager up to $100 at zensports.com. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789. So, what do you most want to see out of the Titans' trip to Cabo? Ching says he's a fan of the retreats. Great things happen when you have chemistry. We talked about how important, how critical every last one of those reps actually are. Amar says more throwing clips. David Lee asks about Tyler Boyd. I did not see Tyler Boyd in the social media posts, but that's that I don't want to say definitively that he wasn't there just because I didn't see him on an Instagram story. Aaron says more catching the football. Well, certainly they're working on that. Jonathan says that it's good to see chemistry. Andrew says I look like I've been having some time by the pool with that tan. Enjoy the summer. So I have been enjoying the summer. We've been to, oh my God, since the football season ended, I've been to Los Angeles twice. I've been to Miami. I've been outside a good deal watching your football team in the offseason program. So yes, I have been out in the sun plenty. And by the way, a quick shout out to the wonderful women at Canvas Skin. You guys can't see how, maybe you saw the other day when my face looked a bit shiny, but I had a bunch of sun damage from being out at football practice and not using appropriate amounts of sunscreen for the better part of 7 years. So I went to a place called Canvas Skin. They lasered the sun damage out of my face, and I'm feeling much better about how my skin is going to be handled heading into another hot, sunny summer training camp here in the next couple of weeks, here in less than a month, as a matter of fact. Cordy Jackson says, I've been out in these streets perpetually, baby, but you know how we do. That's how it goes. All right, so what do you most want to see out of the Cabo trip? The thing that I'm most looking at is Levis's throwing mechanics in the videos. Now, he's not there working with a coach. This is working out on his own, not on his own. He's got his teammates there, but working out on their own time where there's, they bring their own structure. They are the structure. And this is a part of Will Levis, not just becoming quarterback one, but also establishing himself as a leader of that group as he continues to work towards that effort and continues to do so. But what I'm watching is the mechanics on Levis in any time I see Will Levis throwing, because they've been working on the mechanics with Will Levis for a period of time now. And certainly that's something that he's talked about with us previously during mandatory minicamp in the offseason program.
No, I mean, quarterbacks are weirdos. We're always tweaking with something. We always feel like something might be off. Like you saw Brady go through handful of different footworks throughout one season. And just the ball wasn't coming out the way that I would have liked it to, and we just started looking at what could potentially be the cause of it, and just been messing around with things, specifically with my base, that I feel like have gotten me into a good spot.
So that is Will Levis talking about how quarterbacks are weirdos, always tweaking things, always messing with their footwork. He brings up the idea of Tom Brady going through multiple different kinds and forms of footwork in the course of one single season, right? Constantly tweaking, constantly adjusting, constantly adding things to your repertoire to try and be the best version of yourself. So I'm not going to pretend to be any kind of expert in quarterback mechanics, but I am trying to learn the mechanics that they're trying to teach him and seeing how similar they look to the videos, for example, that we took during the offseason program versus what we're seeing in Cabo at this point. So a little bit nitpicky there, but still worth paying attention to. All right, time for a weekend bounce back. Who needs to bounce back most in sports? Let me know on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. That's how we'll put a bow on tonight's show. I've got a good one that we'll get to here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators. And the official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators is that man right there. I pointed the wrong direction. That man right there, Gary Ashton and the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Go to GaryAshton.com. Get your dream address without the stress, the intel edge you need to succeed with the Ashton team. Bork says in the comment section, who needs a bounce back? The United States of America is going to need a bounce back after this debate. Yeah, that starts in about 20 minutes, and I'm about to watch that as well with my girlfriend when she gets to the house after the primetime show is concluded. I'm prepared to be made very sad by all the things that are going on there. I'm prepared to be made angered by all of it, and I'm prepared to be done with both of these particular candidates, whether that's this election cycle or, I hope that we're done with them by next election cycle. God knows they're both, up in their 80s at this point. So I have precious little enthusiasm about either of the candidates, but certainly, for the sake of the country and for the sake of being informed, I'm going to watch tonight. I don't know how much I'm going to learn, but I'm going to watch. So I think that James Reynolds, coming back to the bounce backs, or prior to the bounce back stuff, says, you bring that up, the mechanics. What is your assessment on his mechanics? Is he consistent? So again, James, I'm going to recuse myself by saying this, that I am not a quarterback footwork expert. So when I tell you that, to me, from an untrained eye, even though I've been covering quarterbacks and NFL teams or this NFL franchise for 7 seasons, I will tell you that he looks to be continuing to work through the additional techniques, additional footworks, additional arm angles, platforms that he's being asked to throw from to maximize his efficiency and to improve his accuracy. I would not say that it has been consistent, but I also would add that that's okay. This is the time. Practice is the time to experiment, right? You've heard about Brian Callahan. You've heard Brian Callahan talk about that before. You've heard every coach talk about that before. You make the mistakes in practice. You just make the best effort humanly possible to make sure that you don't make those same mistakes twice over. So I would say that consistent is not yet the word that I would use, but that is what this period of time is about, to develop that consistency and to continue to rep it out that way. So work in progress is how I would describe him. USA soccer team loss after Panama, or USA soccer team after the loss to Panama is what MB says. That's so disappointing to see them lose in the Copa America that way. Please list all the time some bug in the national media has praised the Titans. Take all the time you need. I don't want to do that. That sounds like boring exercise. You don't have any bugs in the national media because Jason McCourty's not on national. Well, actually, I don't know if McCourty's still doing TV for like CBS and like Nickelodeon and stuff like that, but he's not on Good Morning Football anymore, which has been not discontinued, but is on a really, really long pause as they try and figure everything out over there. So there are no representatives of the Titans. And then, oh no, that's not true. Harry Douglas still out here repping the Titans on ESPN radio. Primarily a Falcons player, but also spent a couple of seasons with the Titans. Oh, I forgot about Chris Sims. Okay, Chris Sims, former Titan. Chris Sims bounced around a little bit in the league, but definitely was here with the Tennessee Titans for a period of time. So there is that. All well and good. I have heard Chris Sims stories about Floyd Reese, which make me laugh, but that's neither here nor there. Who needs to bounce back most? The NFL. Rare that the NFL needs a bounce back, but as you talk about how much the cap space went up this offseason, and you talk about how much money the quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, are getting paid this offseason in the neighborhood of $55 million on an average annual basis. This story on the NFL's loss in a lawsuit about price gouging over Sunday ticket. The initial reports from the courtroom pegged the Sunday ticket verdict, this is reporting from Pro Football Talk, at $4.096 billion. Others have it as high as $4.8 billion. Given the requirement under antitrust law that the verdict be tripled, the final number, exclusive of interest, is anywhere from between $12.288 billion to $14.4 billion that the NFL, split amongst its 32 teams, is going to have to pay out to businesses, to individuals who paid for Sunday ticket because they have been price gouging them for years upon years upon years. This is a victory for the consumer, but it will have implications in some form or fashion on the business of football. You remember the COVID cap that took about a $16 million haircut for every NFL team. If every NFL team is having to split up a 12 to 14 billion with a B lawsuit amongst its 32 clubs, it is very, very feasible that the salary cap could dip for the first time in a non-COVID season. Oh my God, I'm trying to think of the last time the salary cap did take a dip in a non-COVID season. I don't have that. I don't have that frame of reference handy to me, but the NFL and its teams could be hindered by this moving forward, which is why the contract stuff is interesting, because teams like the Titans, who have a lot of money tied up in future years, L'Jarius Sneed, Chidobe Awuzie, Calvin Ridley, Lloyd Cushenberry, Tony Pollard, all kinds of players that they sign, if the cap not only doesn't grow, but shrinks, that's a pretty interesting situation to think about, because a lot of NFL teams, including the Jaguars, who just paid Trevor Lawrence $55 million, are going to be looking around and be like, oh, what do we do here? A lot of praise for Florio and Pro Football Talk on the NFL's lawsuit. Yes, they did excellent reporting on that throughout the course of this long process. And that's the biggest legal loss, certainly the biggest financial loss, and a legal decision that the NFL has ever taken, but they will appeal it. So we'll see what the final figure ultimately ends up being. It's going to do it for us tonight on the Primetime Show. That's going to do it for us this week on the Primetime Show. We will be back at it tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone. We'll be talking a lot about this NFL lawsuit. We'll also have Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio to talk about the offseason. Have a great rest of your evening. Have a great weekend. And the next time we meet, it will be Sunday night on A to Z Sports Primetime.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville! Go home!